Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. I was on the Quite Frankly podcast tonight, and I spent quite a bit of time prepping for that show. I wanted to do a video about what's going on in California, an update, because the fires are absolutely out of control in Sonoma County, and all roads lead right back to PG&E once again. Private, corporate PG&E, Rothschild-controlled PG&E. And we talked about it in a lot of detail tonight, so I want to share that segment with you. Real quickly, though, in my last video, I mentioned Mark Maron having responded to the video I made about the lying left. I don't know that I'm going to have time to break all that down. He just conflates everything. If you want to go listen to what he said, it's easy to find on markmaron.com. It was episode 1065 with Pamela DeBars, and he starts his little mini rant where he confesses tongue-in-cheek that we busted him. That starts at about the 3-minute mark. Again, episode 1065. Hey, I have a packed week this week. Lots more to come. So thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for real news 24/7 to SGT Report. Now here's a portion of tonight's show with our friend Frank from Quite Frankly.
My love must be a kind of blind love.
You know, I made a mistake picking this song for right now. I don't know. I'm very, I'm meticulous about the song choices. I don't know why I picked I Only Have Eyes for You before I call up Sean. It's the wrong pick. But whatever, it's a great song, and the Flamingos are fantastic. Okay, let's call up our buddy, shall we? Away we go.
Hey, Frank.
Oh, Sean, it's so great to have you back on, man. How have you been?
I've been good. Hey, thanks for asking me to come back on. It's been too long, and I like doing these live things.
Oh, yeah. No, it's crazy how long it's actually been. Because you and I was on your channel maybe about a month or two ago, and time is just flying too fast. I powered up Skype, and I saw the last time you called into this show was back in March.
Oh, wow. Well, I think that's probably around the last time they were lighting California on fire. I mean, can you believe what we're seeing right now? I tweeted about this earlier today, and I just may as well read this. My head is spinning. I was listening to that rant from Michael Savage, by the way, and it was a great rant. But as you and I both know, this is all going according to plan.
Yeah.
Okay. This isn't malfeasance to the degree that people are just bumbling idiots. This is malfeasance to the degree that the plan is UN Agenda 2030 policies. And what are we now? We're 2019. People have no idea the hell that we are in for over the next decade if the criminal Democrats who have sold out completely to the Rothschild Agenda 2030 policies, if that comes to fruition, they have no idea the hell. I mean, what we're seeing in California is just the tip of the iceberg. And I tweeted about this today. Question: what other state in the South or Southwest is dry and occasionally windy in the summer and fall? I bet you could name 5, maybe 6, maybe 10, Frank. Number 2, what other state has massively destructive fires every single year, always caused by one utility company that gets away with it? Answer: none. California's PG&E equals Rothschild, and Rothschild equals UN Agenda 2030. I need that to sink in, and people need to start doing their research on UN Agenda 2030. And I know you've covered this to some degree even tonight, Frank, but what we're seeing in California again is not forgivable. People need to get enraged. And right now, unfortunately, I think people in California are just so damn scared they don't have time to be enraged.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's you really have to take account of all of your priorities when you're on the run from fires that are scouring, miles every day. Square mileage, how it's being eaten up is ridiculous. And, Sean, a part of the great irony of all this stuff is, too, that back in 2017, I remember I took it out. It was from the USA Today. Where is it over here? Here you go. If you just want to see how it's not only hypocrisy with what's going on out there, but the stupidity. Most of this Agenda 2030 ideas of returning nature to the way it was before man and creating these tinderbox scenarios, it's all for the restoration of the planet and Mother Gaia and wanting to save the desert tortoise and all that stuff. But back in 2017, USA Today and the Reno Gazette reported this: for every 2 to 3 days that these wildfires burn, GHG emissions are roughly equal to the annual emissions, that's the entire year's worth of emissions, from every single car in the entire state of California. So even from an accounting standpoint, the damage that is done to the environment out of, that is born from all of these actions that are supposed to help the environment, you would think that somewhere out there it would wake somebody up, unless, of course, like you said, it's going exactly according to plan.
You know what? I've got some sound bites prepared for you tonight, and I was going to end with one from Ann Bressington. But I think since what you just brought up, since you just touched on that, and the whole global warming, climate change agenda, which is all part of UN Agenda 2030, folks, you're going to have to give up your access to current form of energies in the name of saving the planet. And trust me when I say, do the research yourself, solar and wind will never, ever cut it. It can't even come close. We use coal to power our cities. We use gasoline to power our cars. We use natural gas, coal, and other forms of energy to heat our homes. If they take those forms of energy away, which is the plan, and it's not a hidden plan anymore. This isn't occult stuff. It's in the wide open. Listen to AOC. Listen to Pelosi. Listen to Clinton. Listen to all of these Democrats. They're going to tell you every single day. Listen to the 2020 election candidates. They're telling you exactly what the plan is, all in the name of transforming our world, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Research it. Type into your browser. Don't use Google. I've been using Bing lately, Frank, because Google it's useless at this point. I literally, to find one of the video clips I'm going to play tonight, I had to use Bing to find one of my old videos because it was not coming up in the Google search results. Use Bing and research Sustainable Development Goals, friends. Transforming our world, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I'm going to play a clip for you right now. It's 1 minute long. I guess it's 1 minute, 20 seconds. And this is Ann Bressington exposing the origins of this complete hoax on humanity. Listen to this. It all ties back to the Club of Rome, friends, in the late 1960s.
Ladies and gentlemen, the origins of the environmental movement as we see it began back in 1968 when the Club of Rome was formed. The Club of Rome has been described as a crisis think tank.
Can you hear that?
Yep.
All right, I'll continue. Let this play because it's got to sink in. Share this with your friends and family. This is an agenda. They wanted to whipsaw humanity in the name of pollution, in the name of global warming. At one point, it was global cooling. Now it's climate change. This is the agenda. Whipsaw humanity into action. And who will benefit? The banksters who get paid carbon credits and then will inherit the world as we're all herded out of rural areas, off the wildlands, and into huge megacities.
Which specialises in crisis creation. The main purpose of this think tank
Club of Rome
was to formulate a crisis that would unite the world and condition us to the idea of global solutions to local problems. In a document called The First Global Revolution, authored by Alexander King and Bertrand Schneider, on pages 104 and 105, it stated, "In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers, of course, will be caused by human intervention that will require a global response." That's the origin of global warming, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know if I've played that for you before, Frank. I play that bite fairly frequently because I need people to understand what's going on here. We're not being told the truth.
No, and that's I have not heard that clip before, but I have read that passage from the Club of Rome materials before. We actually that did come up within the last month or so, but that's the first time I heard that read.
What I was working out tonight before I got home here and prepared here for our show, and I was just thinking, can you imagine how different the world would be? We've talked about this before. The people in control of this world, and by the way, I want to shout out a video you all need to go watch right now. Go to YouTube and type in Marty Leeds Live. Marty's a buddy of mine. I've had him on several times before, and he's got a new video out today. It was a live stream that I listened to most of live. It's called Seattle 113. Watch that video. because the people in control of this planet for so long, folks, I guess the best way to put it is that they are a Kabbalistic group that uses coded language and numerology, and they tell us what they're going to do before they do it. And right now there's a lot of people that are afraid of a potential false flag act of terror coming up here in Seattle soon. So that's partially what that video is about. But in setting up for him to describe that, he describes what went on in New York City on 9/11 and goes into some other things in detail. It's very important that people understand this, because the same group of people, and he actually mentioned that in the live stream today, this same group of people right now have lit California on fire. And, you know, in that rant from Michael Savage, he's screaming, where's the governor? Where's Gavin Newsom? Do people understand? I think most people don't understand that Gavin Newsom was groomed for his position, and he has close ties to the Gettys, the Pritzkers, and the Fishers. Fortunes made in oil, hotel, and fashion. Gavin Newsom, just like Governor Jerry Brown before him, is just playing his role. Why do you guys think that California is absolutely bankrupt, morally and fiscally? This is all part of the plan. California is the 7th biggest economy on the planet, we're told, and it's being run like some prostitution den by a pimp who's stealing from the prostitutes and pocketing all the money. I mean, it's pathetic the way that it should be broken up into 6 or 7 different little states. California, what's happening there is all by design, and we can get further into UN Agenda 2030. But let me ask you something before I play the next clip. Mm-hmm. If California were run like a real state, like I guess if any of the states were run like actual republics, like where justice mattered, where law mattered, do you think that the executives at PG&E would still be walking free? Do you think that in China, if what this utility has done over the past several years continued to happen, that those executives would walk free and get paid hundreds of $millions in bonuses?
No.
Frank, these people should be in prison. I want to remind you here, I took a note here. November 8th, 2018. 85 people died. This is at least the article I pulled from November 8th, 2018. It's not that long ago, folks. We just saw this with the Camp Fire, which, by the way, destroyed paradise. Look at the coded language. You got to love that. 85 people died in last year's fire, the Camp Fire, named after Camp Creek Road. The cause? Electrical fire transmission by PG&E. And now PG&E, a privately owned utility, declares bankruptcy to protect itself from any liabilities. And after that last fire, November 2018, the criminal government in California passed legislation allowing PG&E to pass along the cost for any future lawsuits onto its customers. I mean, I can't even think they wouldn't run a company this badly in China. I don't think they would get away with this in communist China, a country I absolutely loathe. I guess I'm making the argument right now that in many ways, the government of California is even more corrupt than the Chinese government.
Well, listen, Eve, you start seeing the marriages that are made there. It's not even just the power companies. They suck off of the federal teat. That's the only way that they can even keep this farce afloat. If they actually had to work with in-state dollars to do all of these things and prop up all of these political campaigns with open borders and whatnot, they would never be able to prop this up without getting money from elsewhere. And the other thing is, too, that right there they cradle Silicon Valley, which is probably what generates most of the wealth out there, or a good portion of it. And you want to talk about marriages, Silicon Valley and China are very big. The ports, China has a very big influence on the California ports out there. There is a great deal of there's a great deal of similarity between the way things are run and the way that accountability is just not on the top of anybody's list there. It's all about making it seem like you're doing something good, but making sure that the apple cart is not upset.
Yep. And
but the thing here is that when I'm looking at these numbers, Sean, more than 10,000 structures being threatened, over 1 million without power, and many of these outages are planned outages. That's the thing that's getting me. The planned outages are the ones that are getting me there. So what are you gathering on your end as far as the actual maintaining of power and you know, herding people off and getting them used to having to be on the run with no link to modern society or modern technology, even when you cut the power like that.
Well, I was going to bring that up, and I'll play a clip for you here in a minute from Deborah Travaris. Got it queued up, and you'll note it's about a 2-minute clip. You'll note at the point she gets cut off from speaking in front of, she was at a board of, what would it have been, a city council meeting probably at the county of Sonoma, just back on October 11th here. And she gets cut off when she mentions Rothschild. I've had Deborah on before, and she talks about Rothschild having its fingers in utilities across the country. This isn't just specific to PG&E, folks. And I think what's going on with these rolling blackouts now, Frank, is this criminally negligent company is now, I guess what's the word, acclimating people to get used to, conditioning is the word I'm looking for, conditioning people to get used to having no power, right, in the name of the environment, in this case, in the name of preventing fires that they could have prevented by trimming the trees, fires that they could have prevented by upgrading their 100-year-old power lines, fires they could have prevented by not being so goddamn greedy and paying their executives hundreds of millions of dollars and instead doing the job that other utilities across California and specifically all other utilities across the country are doing. You don't see these fires every single year, across the country, do you?
No. You
don't see people dying in their cars trying to escape the campfire all across the country, do you? Let me play this for you. This is from AJ Plus on YouTube, is the YouTube channel. PG&E starts California wildfires and gets away with it. You're going to hear, I think, Gavin Newsom first, or he probably just finished talking. This is queued up to 4:39, and it goes to 5:50. So listen to this. This again, guys, I want you to understand, this is a pattern of criminal negligence by PG&E. Rothschild controlled to a large degree PG&E. And when I say that, guys, I don't say that tongue-in-cheek. Roger Kimmel, the vice chair of Rothschild Inc., resigned from PG&E board January 2019. Okay? So listen to this history of criminal negligence. I heard you say, you're reading an article there, I jotted this down right before I came on. You read 5 out of 10 fires linked to PG&E. Frank, it's far, 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 far worse than that.
And not only that, with the PG&E, put this on top of it. The Interior Department last August said that 90% of wildfires all over the country are caused by people, not climate change. So you can put Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom and the rest of the Agenda 2030 fellow travelers in that category of disaster enablers. So go ahead. Let's play the clip.
Yeah, people, not climate change. In this case, power lines controlled by a criminal company.
Disasters.
But PG&E was already on criminal probation. In 2010, a PG&E gas line exploded and killed 8 people. The company was convicted on 6 criminal charges and fined $1.6 billion by the state for failing to maintain its pipeline system. From 2014 to 2017, PG&E power lines and equipment were responsible for sparking 1,500 wildfires across California. Then, in 2018, the California State Legislature passed a bill allowing PG&E to pass the costs of the 2017 fires to its customers. 3 months later, the Camp Fire happened.
Several things went wrong before the Camp Fire broke out. A big issue is that power lines in wooded areas like Paradise tend to get caught on trees. And PG&E, which services 70,000 square miles across California, insists it doesn't have the manpower required to trim all the trees.
But what they could have done is shut off power to customers as a safety precaution. In fact, they even said they would. 2 days before the Camp Fire, PG&E warned customers that they might shut off power, but they didn't, even though it appears that all of the factors for a shutoff were at play. In an email, PG&E told me the conditions that day did not meet their criteria, but declined to elaborate.
All right, I'll pause it there. I mean, it's just a pattern of criminal, I wouldn't say negligence, it's a pattern of criminality. Because every other utility across the country seems to be able to do a decent job and prevent fires like this and not be responsible for the deaths of 85 people. We're told, I bet that Camp Fire death toll was higher than 85, but they're saying 85 officially died in a PG&E fire last year, November 2018. Here we are again having the same conversation, and I wonder at what point, Frank, people in California, well, I guess, again, they're too scared to do anything. They're all on the run. What are they supposed to do? Meanwhile, you have a criminal government under Governor Jerry Brown passing SB 277 requiring mandatory injections. So, maybe you've got some questions about the efficacy and safety of vaccines. Too damn bad. You're going to take the shot if you want your kid to go to a public school. I'm telling you what, metaphorically speaking, I don't mean this literally, California should burn down because it's a criminally run state. But my heart goes out to these people because they are being victimized by criminal corporations that have been taken private, utilities taken private, put into the hands of international banksters, trillionaires, and this is what you get. You get a utility that claims they don't have the manpower or resources to trim the damn trees. Are you kidding me?
Hey, this is another thing here now, Sean. When we talk about there's always people who are on the take. There's always a dollar to be made. You talk about PG&E being responsible 5 out of 10 of these big fires. You can see that they're criminally culpable in many ways, and still they keep getting these lucrative bailouts and these large amounts of money that are 9 figures as far as how large they are, and the hundreds of millions of dollars that are given to them to be able to go out there and do their job better when it's really... It's insane that you should be, and like you said before, for them to now actually go out there and be able to recoup any kind of losses or any kind of damages from their own customers is insanity. But that is on top of the grift. This is all being laid on top of the big grift that is the ideological basis for all of this stuff here, and that is. What is this Agenda 21 about? What is Agenda 2030 about? Why is it that so many of these far left, crazy, progressive crack job, candidates are all obsessed with the year 2050 now? What is the whole thing here, 2050? Well, when I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the UN. This is the reason why I also like to check in on what's going on with the Vatican and this Pope, because whether or not we have these governments, we know that political leaders and socio-political leaders are trying to nudge us toward one world government, one world consolidation of resources and everything else. But from a spiritual aspect, we're seeing people like Pope Francis do it as well. They're all on the same side pushing this stuff here. And then over the weekend, this video of a UN I don't know whether it was just a convention or something in Utah started getting passed around on Twitter. Did you see this?
Yeah, I saw it, and I saw the clip, and I didn't have time to dig into it. I have no idea what that's about. And I know everybody gets freaked out about UN vehicles and a UN takeover and a UN invasion and some sort of cataclysm that could happen in this country. And I mean, I've covered it in the past. I mean, I don't want to get stuck in the weeds on that because what we're dealing with in California right now is completely tangible, and I have a few more sound bites to play for you. But what did you make of that clip?
Well, it really wasn't even so much the clip that it led me back over to something that has been kicked around now a little bit recently, and that was HR 1111. And you want to talk about the UN, any kind of a takeover and any kind of a way that the door can be kicked open so that these plans can be implemented in a little bit more of a free-form way. This is unbelievable what I'm reading here. It was put out there February 8th of this year, but it really is like the resurrection of something we saw a few years ago to establish a Department of Peace Building and for other purposes. We can talk about that at the tail end if we have any time, but since it's all kind of related, I wanted to bring it on up. Let's go back to California. What do you have next for us?
Well, that's interesting that you'd bring that up because I've made this point in video after video after video. And look, I do not think that Trump is the Messiah, right? And, there's a lot of people that, it's almost like a messianic complex with this man because I think we're all so thankful that Hillary Clinton isn't sitting in the White House. By the way, I was reading a news item hitting tonight about an hour and a half ago. Hillary will run in 2020 because, quote, she feels she was put on earth to be president, folks. This is a Clinton ally saying she's just waiting for Biden to drop out because the guy's a disaster and she wants to run. I'm telling you what, guys, Trump is no Messiah, okay? He's far from perfect. Who knows? He may be in on some higher level grand chess for the globalists in the state of Israel, for all I know. But what I do know factually is that we're very blessed that that witch isn't in the White House, because some of the stuff we've described here tonight, the what was that? What was that one you just described?
HR 1111.
Yeah, I mean, that's the stuff we'd see fast-tracked under Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
And what I just wanted to point out for folks who don't understand what UN Agenda 2030 is just type this into any browser of your choice. The UN Agenda 21 map, okay? It's, I guess, technically called the Simulated Reserve and Corridor System to Protect Biodiversity as required by the UN Convention on Biological Diversity Wildlands Project, UN and US and Biosphere Programs and World Heritage Program as a vital step to attaining sustainable development. Look at the map, UN Agenda 21 map, type it in, look at it. All of the areas in red and yellow will be little to no human use areas and buffer zones that are highly, highly regulated, meaning you're not going to be building a house there. When I saw this map more than 5 years ago, Frank, I thought there's no way they could ever achieve this plan. Americans would never, ever stand for it. We're armed to the teeth. We would never stand for it. And now I see what's going on in California, and I'm not saying that's the panacea. They can't burn down the entire country. But I think what's going on in California is completely related to this map. How many people that were burned out of their homes in Paradise and the Camp Fire less than a year ago are not going to rebuild? How many of those people are going to choose to move out of California entirely? How many of those people will be told by their insurance companies they won't be able to get insurance? How much of that land will be turned into a Superfund site due to toxicity? How much of that land will just be reclaimed and never rebuilt on? Reclaimed by, I guess, the U.S. government. I think this all plays into UN Agenda 21 and 2030. And what I wanted to play for you before I lose you here is Deborah Tavares. I believe this was on October 11th, posted on the 12th. The county of Sonoma. Well, I don't need to say any more. Just listen to this.
This is Deborah Tavares with StopTheCrime.net. We do live in the WUI, the Wildlands Urban Interface, and with the power shutdown, we have no water, unless we've prepared, and we have. There are many neighborhoods now that have brought in additional tanks, fire hoses, gel. We are on our own, and we're going to be in clogged roads, narrow roads, if we did try to bug out with our life in a backpack. So I would alert everybody to go to StopTheCrime.net, because we have posted the Fire Power Outage Community Awareness Preparedness Meeting information that was conducted by a 30-year retiree fire captain. We are being given information through this more than we are being given information how to harden up than I've ever heard anywhere else, and I attend all the fire meetings. We are aware exactly what's going on. Everybody right now, when you leave this room, look up. We are being heavily aerosol sprayed right now, which is heavy combustible metal spraying. And that is exactly what happened prior to the fires of 2 years ago, prior to the fires in Paradise, Redding, and on and on and on. Now, you can continue to say you don't understand what's going on, but many people do. And we're very concerned about the disinformation when our lives, property are at stake. And I know that this is an enormous, undiscussed, factual reality of weather events. I will tell you, several years back, I went to the PG&E Weather Control Central in the 16th floor of the PG&E headquarters. They know exactly the kinds of weather events that are occurring because they have patents and permits in the state for weather modification. And PG&E is Rothschild. Make no mistake. Thank you.
See how she gets cut off?
You know what, Sean? I've seen this one there too. There was one smarmy ass guy on the left of that council meeting that immediately starts getting up and fiddling and getting himself a glass of water, just trying to look casual, like this is all just a big game. But Deborah Tavares is always very clear about what's going on and presents. And she's another one of those people that exemplifies whether you follow her or not. Somebody who shows up to all the fire meetings, someone who shows up to all the town hall meetings. That's the only way that we're ever going to live in something that resembles a free country ever again, is when people start showing up to those meetings and taking a little bit more of an interest in this stuff. And it's the only way that this stuff is not provided to cover fire, to be able to grow and be maintained outside of public scope, which is why it's so insane. The breadth of this operation that is just going on and developing before our eyes.
You know what? I mean, this is very much a Deborah versus Goliath situation. So I'm glad she got up and said what she said, but people aren't listening. People aren't getting this information. And I know I began this conversation with you by not completing my thought because I jumped into Marty Leeds. And what I was going to say is, can you imagine how different a world this would be if it were run by benevolent dictators instead of the malevolent, demonic dictators that run the show? Because they own the media. They control the Mockingbird mainstream media, which is why the people were never told the truth about 9/11 and World Trade Center 7, and most people don't know that building collapsed that day at 5:20. They hide everything. They lie by omission, and they bear false witness. It's what they specialize in. According to ABC News, the containment of the Kincaid fire is shrinking overnight, 55,000 acres in Sonoma County, with only 5% of the fire contained, Frank. Now, Deborah came and gave this testimony in front of the county of Sonoma 16 days ago. 16 days ago. How much worse have things gotten in those 16 days? The fire's 5% contained and continues to spread. And I would advise people to go to YouTube and type in Logic Before Authority. It's a great YouTube channel who continues to capture anomalous events via satellite and infrared cameras, showing the ignition of these fires happening in very unexplained ways, explosions in the middle of the night that result in these fires. We are not being told the truth about this stuff, and I think the spraying she's talking about may play a big part of it, because I've never, ever seen entire neighborhoods, 55,000 acres, go up like kindling, like it was pre-ignited with, like gasoline was poured on it. I mean, these people have got their backs up against the walls, and that's why we need to talk about this stuff. Can I conclude with one more soundbite?
Oh, please, absolutely. Go right ahead.
All right, this is from my friend Harley Schlanger. I interviewed him on October 19th. Great guy.
I saw that one.
This is what Harley says about this UN Agenda 2030 plan. This was not the focus of our conversation, so it's a very brief clip, but the name of the video is Trump Checkmate.
We just put out a report, by the way, called Carbon Dioxide Reduction is a Mass Murder Policy Designed by the City of London and Wall Street, which goes through the fact that this has been their policy going back to the end of World War II. To deindustrialize the world, to go to a globalized system. And now these bankers are talking about a digital currency, not Bitcoin. They're talking about central banks not just pumping money into the bubble, but making sure that nothing goes into anything that's physical, anything that produces anything.
I'll pause it there. You get the point. I mean, I think the best takeaway on what we're seeing in California with PG&E, it's the same thing we saw from the Pentagon right before 9/11, when Rumsfeld said, we can't account for $2.1 trillion. Catherine Austin Fitts has since vetted that out further to the tune of some $20 trillion has been looted. This is a looting. What's happening in California with PG&E is nothing short of a looting. It's serving the banksters and the bankster class, and it's serving this UN Agenda 2030 policy. What do they ultimately want? They want control of the entire planet. They've already got economic control. Now they're moving for physical control of the entire planet. How can they do that? They have to get people off the lands in the name of saving the planet and herd people into giant, compact megacities. Their plan, their words, not mine. That's the UN Agenda 2030 plan, folks.
Sean, it's always a great time with you, even when the topics are bleak, and this is something that is just glowing hot red right now. I mean, just on the other side of the country, it's ongoing, and it seems like it's happening every other month. And, you know, it's only going to get drier as the winter goes on, so who the hell knows what's going to happen here. But I do know is that More and more people are starting to wonder why the hell this is going on. And whereas they may not find themselves getting as deep down the rabbit hole as someone like you do, at least at first, the one thing that we can all be grateful for are people wondering where all this money is going to and why a state that is supposedly big enough and rich enough to compete on the world stage of nation states, not just a state within an American union over here. Why the hell is it so misrun, and where the hell does all of this lifeline come from? So please leave us some parting shots, and please include any upcoming releases you have and things that you want people to know about.
Well, thanks, man. I just want to say, this stuff is very draining, and it's draining for people to probably hear, and I get pretty riled up about it. I mean, you and I texted back and forth a little bit before I came on about what subject we wanted to cover, and this is sort of the one I settled on, and you supported that. And if I sound mad, look, you're a funny guy, man. You do a great show, and you bring humor to it, and I love that. People love that. I'm not a humorless person, but when I come on for a half hour, and we're going to talk about literally a death agenda, right? This is an anti-human agenda. And look, you guys may not have heard specifically what Harley said. I'll say it again. CO2 reduction is a mass murder policy, all right? Google that document. CO2 reduction is a mass murder policy. They want to take away carbon, which trees breathe. What do trees give back? Oxygen. They want to take away all your current forms of energy. How will you live once you lose those forms of energy? You will live as a serf who cannot afford to drive a car or live in a modern-day single-family home. You will live in a 400-square-foot apartment in a high-rise with a Starbucks beneath you, if you're lucky, in a megacity with your 1.2 children and maybe a wife or your transgender partner. I don't know. Guess it depends on your flavor. What I'm saying is,
it could be all in one.
All in one. This is a anti-human agenda. Don't be fooled by Greta Thunberg. Don't be fooled by AOC, who's a puppet candidate. She auditioned for the role. You have to do your own research. It's an anti-human agenda, and CO2 reduction is a mass murder policy. Read the document. So sorry to be so damn humorless, but we got this is how people, red-blooded Americans, need to speak, and we need to call our representatives, and we need to get active, and we need to do it for the people in California right now who are running from these fires that were caused by PG&E. And it's not the first year, it's not the second year, it's not the third year. This is years and years and years of criminality from that company.
Oh, and listen, Sean, you're spot on with everything, and I'm in agreement with you on all this stuff. And I also, let me say before you leave, I didn't expect you to come on and we were going to be trading jokes on this. It's very serious. So I don't think anybody out there thinks, wow, this guy's a drag. There's no way that you can chuckle through this. And as you heard it in even somebody like Michael Savage's voice prior to me calling you up, this is not something that people are taking lightly. 1 million people in the 21st century are experienced planned power outages, like you were saying, like this is a feudal society, because
that's right. This is feudalism. This is neo-feudalism. That's exactly what this is. And when I say that they want us to live as 14th century serfs, that's not tongue in cheek. That's not hyperbole. That is the plan. Okay, what's going on in California right now is the UN Agenda 2030 plan. And if you live in the Midwest like I do, you're not enduring these fires, and you're not enduring rolling power shutoffs for 2 weeks or a week or whatever. But PG&E is doing that, and they're getting away with it. And I want to know why. Like Michael Savage, I want to know, where's the governor? Oh, he's bought and paid for. This is part of the plan. He's not going to do anything. If that state were run like a real state by and for the people, the PG&E executives would be in handcuffs right now, because what they have done is criminal. They should be brought up on manslaughter charges, at least for the 85 people who died in the last fire they caused.
Oh, yeah. And it's not even just run like a real state. Run like a company. If you're running like a company, you would have liability. And not only that, you would have to work with income that is pretty much fixed. You don't have a lifeline from a government. So the whole thing here is that when you look at all of the responsibilities that have been shirked, forget about even the clearing of brush out there in California, Sean. The fact that they were given money from the federal kitty time and time again to do things like update all of their dams and all of their levees. And, of course, that ridiculous boondoggle waste of money for the high-speed rail line and all that stuff. Where does it all go? It goes to funding and propping up all of these social programs for the open borders down there in the South, because it is a one big, it's an act, a big, a grand political theater that is going on and being perpetrated down there, and they don't have any of their own money. So here they are, living out all of their greatest ideological goals off of the credit card, the federal credit card, and now we're staring at this kind of death and destruction. They need to be pulled. Whatever has to be done to get out of the darkness on this particular chapter, it should be done, and then all plugs of life support to these states from the federal government has got to be stopped.
Yeah, last word, too. By the way, it just popped in my head. We all know this already. It's obvious, but this is another way to be the killer of capitalism, is to make the argument in the future that the utility PG&E was privatized, right? It was taken private to be because obviously capitalists could run it better than the state, than a public-owned utility. So who gets to control it? The Rothschilds. They run it into the ground and kill people and get away with it, pissing off everybody. And you just know this will be used as a poster boy in the future for, the model of capitalism. What happens when we privatize corporations? Oh, they kill 85 people in the campfire. Oh, they cause fires every single year because they can't afford to upgrade their lines because they don't care. They only care about their shareholders. Again, the socialism message, it all ties together. Socialism is the answer, right? Agenda 2030 is the answer. Sustainable development is the answer. Getting people off the lands and into big cities, that's the answer. Not having kids, that's the answer. Why? Because human beings are the problem.
Anti-human, like you said. Thanks again for the call, Sean. It's always great to have you on.
All right, guys, check us out at sgtreport.com for real news 24/7. I mean, it's honestly the antidote to the Mockingbird mainstream horror media lies. So thanks for having me on, buddy.
Oh, absolutely. SGT Report every day. Thank you so much, Sean.
These people were at the height of a fallen world. These people existed at the top of a fallen world. So everything that they had to do in order to get to the top of a fallen world was bad.